At Let's Tell Their Story, we'd like to advise that some content may contain rape, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child abduction, and murder. Not all content is suitable for all audiences. Please be advised while listening. Thank you. You know that, right?
Okay.
All right. Oh, I am tired.
Now that's a way
Ugh.
to start the
Well,
video.
this is my. Oh yeah, of course it is. I am tired. Yeah. Have you ever heard of Christopher Scarver?
Christopher? No, I'm not actually.
Ooh, this is gonna be fun then. 'Cause, yeah, he is kind of before your time, but once I get into the story, you'll understand. Like, oh yeah, okay, now I know who you're talking about. Um, there's a little bit of a plot twist at the end, so Christopher J. Scarver, he was born on July 6, 1969 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was the of 5 children. There's not a whole lot of information on like his growing up and whatnot, but he managed, not managed, but he ended up dropping out of school his senior year, and it's said that he either dropped out because of disciplinary issues or academic, and it could have been both, but he had a history of, I don't want to say wild child, but he was not exactly the golden child either.
Not teacher pet.
No, he was not a teacher's pet, not even close. Um, which is really weird because do you realize what today is?
Today is the 24th.
Anything special about today?
Mm,
You're like, there should be. I know there's something,
yeah.
right? 20 years since your Uncle Steve passed away.
Oh.
Yeah. And the only reason I bring that up because there's a guy in here that's name is Steve. So that's the only reason it brought. And I didn't take the day off, so I'm going to be interesting because I normally take the day off.
Like,
but
and also today was also the day that the U.S. flag raised on Iwo Jima.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Or,
Anyway,
no,
let's get back to the story.
Wait, is today the 24th or 23rd?
Today's 24th, yesterday was 23rd, because yesterday was your other uncle's birthday.
Yeah, so Iwo Jima was the 23rd, not today, sorry. Today was...
There are so many reasons why customers get that trusted...
the Alamo Defender.
Alamo?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so eventually Christopher Scarver goes into the Wisconsin Conservation Corps, and he's in as doing a carpentry training. Sorry. Pearl, what? What's wrong, baby? Huh? What is wrong? I let you come down here to be a good girl. You don't have to be arguing with me. No, we're not arguing.
She's
We are not arguing. Lay down and behave.
She's arguing about because the president and Andrew Johnson was impeached today.
But she can't hear anything. I can't say that. So he goes in for carpentry, and once again, I gotta get rid of these fur monsters. All right, give me a minute.
See ya, kitty.
Come on back, Rose. Come on, kitty.
And this is... And there they go. Bye-bye. Whoosh. Huh.
Ow. Ow.
I
What
can.
you did to me?
I can.
That hurts. Oh, ow.
Wow.
Okay, where was I at?
Carpentry.
Okay. Well, with his I don't think it was disciplinary problems. I think he had authority problems because once again he didn't
Break laws.
I don't know. I think he either dropped out of the conservation thing or he got kicked out. I think he dropped out, which was really stupid because him and his girlfriend at the time had a baby on the way. And his mentor there, whose name was Edward Patz, had told Carver that he would give him a full-time job upon completion of the conservation corps. But after Carver leaves, Edward loses his job there. And then on June 1st, 1990, yeah, weird things got popping up. Oh, he feels like he's having auditory hallucinations where he's literally hearing, like, he calls it the family, where it's a man's voice, a woman's voice, a little boy's voice, and a little girl's voice. So on June 1st, 1990, he goes and he attempts to rob the Wisconsin Conservation Corps, saying that he felt that they owed him. He comes in with a loaded 25 caliber gun, and I don't know if that was a semi. I don't know if that's semi-automatic or not, but I don't think so.
Which weapon?
25 caliber.
That does not narrow it down at all. 25 cal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was a pistol or if it was a revolver. I don't.
It's a It's a pistol. It's actually a very small pistol, like smaller than
Almost like a 9.
No, smaller than a 9mm even.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, they're basically pretty much they're known as the tiny handguns.
Okay. Well, he gets in there and a guy that runs its name is John Fayan. And so he's like, hey, you got to give me money. Well, the guy that had taken Edward's spot, Steve Lohman, happened to come in and he's like, well, what's up, dude? Well, so Christopher tells Fayan, hey, I want money. Well, I don't know what Fayan was thinking, but he must have been like, okay, well, I got $15 in cash on me, and he takes that out of his wallet and gives it to him, and Scarver shoots Steve in the head. And he looks at Fayan and he's like, his exact words were, do you think I'm kidding now? I need more money. So, Fayan starts to write him a check for $3,000. Well, Scarver's like, thinks that he owes him like a whole year's salary or something like that. Well, he's not happy with it. And he grabs the check from Fayan and Fayan's credit cards. And while Scarver's leaving, he continues shooting like bam, 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 bam. Like he probably didn't want to leave any witnesses. Well, it didn't take very long for cops to show up, and he was arrested at his girlfriend's apartment building because he was sitting on the steps. Now, I can't go into Scarver without talking about Jesse Anderson. Jesse Anderson was he came from a middle-class neighborhood and graduated in 1975 from the Alton High School in Illinois. He had gotten a scholarship to the college. I didn't write it down. I thought I was going to remember it, but it's kind of a more prestigious college. Well, his scholarship ran out in 1977, and he goes and works for a family friend's pizzeria called Happy Joe's. Well, within a year after he gets his scholarship runs out, he's telling the owner, Jim, of Joe's Pizzeria that he doesn't have the scholarship anymore and he needs money and whatnot. So Jim actually ended up opening up a second Happy Joe's Pizza where Jesse was upgraded to a manager. Eventually, Jim realizes somebody's taking money out of the tills and told the employee, if something sketchy is going on, I will have you guys polygraphed. Well, Jesse refused to be polygraphed. And at this time, he was living with his boss, Jim. So Jim kicks him out, fires him. And while he was at this prestigious college, he met this woman named Deborah. And after 4 years, they'd gotten married, and then like within 4 years, their son John William was born. When John William was born, Jesse starts showing his true colors. Like he is a total jerk. Like telling her she can't do this, she can't talk to this person, can't talk to that person. Like, and he's just degrading her body and whatnot. And at the time, he's telling her how him and his buddies used to do a bunch of burglaries back in the day and that they'd beat some guy up and whatnot. And while he's with Deborah, he goes to the community college and gets his bachelor's degree. Well, it didn't take long, and well, actually, it wasn't even Deborah. It was Jesse that filed for divorce, and eventually Deborah, she remarries, and John Williams is adopted by her new husband, which was probably good for this kid and for Deborah. And Jesse he was just happy because he got out of paying child support. Well, it didn't take very long, and they got divorced in 94. Yeah, no, 84. And in 84, Jesse got remarried and he married a woman named Barbara. And it's not confirmed, but it's probably that Jesse was seeing Barbara while he was still married to Deborah. Well, while he is married to Barbara, he applies for the FBI. Well, the FBI does a bunch of backgrounds and whatnot. Like, even they go and talk to family and friends. They had talked to his ex-wife, Deborah, and questioned him about whether he should get the job or not. And she's like, no, I don't think he should because he's going to use his access to either to do things that he probably shouldn't, like just maliciousness. Well, Jesse doesn't get the job, but he tells his family and friends. This is so funny, is that he wasn't hired by the FBI because they weren't hiring white men at the time. And with Barbara, they had the perfect family, you could say. But that was just a facade for the outside, because anybody that knew them thought they had like the most perfect family. In 1987, she had their first child, and by 1992, she had their third child. So she had 3 children under 5 within 5 years. That's a lot to handle because I remember you guys being 6 and under, and there's 3.5 of you.
I don't know what you're talking
consider
about.
Yeah. Well, it didn't take long, and so Barbara figured out Jesse's a piece of crap. And I want to say something else, but I don't know how far we're into videos. So, March of 1992, he runs for an office in, yeah, even Wisconsin towns and counties are hard for us to say. Ozaukee or Ozaukee County must be outside of Milwaukee. And he loses, and eventually he's going to take Barbara to Jamaica for a new honeymoon. Well, it was anything but a honeymoon while they're there. There's some sort of hiking falls in Jamaica that people go up, and she had sandals on, she was slipping and whatnot. I think that prior to it, he had told Barbara's parents that he didn't think Barbara was going to be around much longer because of her depression and whatnot. So it's possible that his whole trip to Jamaica was that hopefully she would slip and die and whatnot on these falls, which didn't happen. And he, back in 87, Barbara had wrote a letter to Jesse saying that, why are you so mean? I tried to do everything for you. And just the letter is important. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. And it just, like, why do you hit me? Why do you kick me? Why are you so mean to me? Because he wanted the perfect family, perfect kids, perfect wife. He had 3 kids within 5 years. That baby weight is not always that easy to lose. She hadn't lost it. So in, let me, it was in my notebook. Where did I put my notebook? Because I went from the computer to the writing notes. There it is. Yeah, so on April 21st in 1992, this is after they were in Jamaica and whatnot, comes back, and they're going on a date night that neither one of them really wanted to go on. But so while they're on this date night, they go to the mall, the north side mall in Milwaukee. I guess there's the north side and south side. I stay out of Milwaukee because I don't like driving in Green Bay. I don't want to drive in Milwaukee.
I live too close to Minneapolis.
Exactly. I mean, my doctor's appointments a couple of years ago were all in Green Bay, so they go and they see the movie City of Joy. I didn't even know this movie existed, but I was also only 12. And then they had the supper at TGI Fridays. So they get out of the TGI Fridays, and all of a sudden, a bystander hears a woman screaming, "Help, help, somebody help me." And then in the process, well, Barbara's stabbed in the head, and she's laying underneath a van. I've seen pictures of this van and whatnot, and I'm sorry, but it's the kidnapper van that she ended up crawling underneath. Anybody that knows anything about what I'm talking about knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know which van I'm talking about, right?
Meow.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So the cops show up, and Jesse literally has a knife in his chest, and the EMTs and the cops tell him not to pull it out. Of course, he pulls it out, because he's a big tough man, and and he finds a hat. It's an LA Clippers hat on the ground, and he's like, "Oh, these two black men, they came and they started stabbing her, and they started stabbing me, and I knocked his hat off on the ground, and here's his hat." Oh, it did not take very long for the Milwaukee Police Department to realize Jesse's stories were not adding up. They had his suspicions they had their suspicions of him right away, because Barbara had been stabbed 21 times in her head, between her left eye and her left ear. And she ended up in the hospital for 2 days, where after Jesse recovers from being in the hospital, he takes her off life support. No questions asked, just, "Oh, I don't want her to live in a vegetative state." That was his excuse. They take her off life support. And that was on April 23rd of 92.
What is with people trying to stab people 21 or 23 times?
I don't know. Well, Jesse stabbed himself 4 times. And the last time he kept the knife in there, and they were superficial wounds. So with them being superficial wounds, the cops were already onto it. And within 24 hours, his story changed 3 times. But each time he made it very clear that it was 2 black men that attacked them. But and he even gave a detailed description of the attackers, saying it was a tall, thin black man with a thin mustache, about 175 pounds, in dark clothing. Okay, I am sorry, but that's a pretty vague description. That's basically saying the same thing as the picture of the BTK killer. It's just a basic description. Well, as the investigation goes on, they find out that Jesse actually bought the hat at the mall earlier that day, where he had gone in the morning, then had a few errands to run. One of those errands was that he buys this LA Clippers hat from this kid named Tommy. So Tommy's like, finds this all out, and the cops are like, "Yeah, he bought that from me like for $20." I'm like, okay, whatever.
It's an expensive hat.
Well, buy this hat. It's an LA Clippers hat. And in 92, that actually would have been right around, that would have been expensive in 92, a $20 hat. It would have been like what we'd be paying for something like $60 to $80 today.
Holy, yeah, because they're $40 now.
Okay. Yeah, see? Because it's got a name brand on it. Or it's got I think the Clippers are basketball.
I don't know.
I think they're basketball. Anyway, so on the day of Barbara's funeral, Jesse had been arrested for the murder of Barbara. Now, they still let him go to the funeral, but he's in handcuffs. Well, it gets there, and his own sister listening, she's like, "What did you do?" Like, they all knew he had a temper, the family did, but he put on such a facade for the people around him that they're like, "This can't be." They had a perfect family. So his reasoning on why he killed his wife, he was too fat. She didn't keep the perfect sad. She wasn't the perfect trophy wife. And the fact that just a couple weeks prior to them going to Jamaica, he made sure that her $250,000 life insurance policy was up to date. Even though he made $145,000 a year at the time, which in 92, that's equivalent to $332,000 now. I did my math and my research last night, and I did this last night. Because because I was talking to you. So what got that Clippers hat is what actually ended up him arrested. Is one, it had Barbara's blood on it, which was in the back seat of his Volvo, because he made sure to pick that up to make sure I knocked this off. Just not only did it have Tommy's hair follicles in it, but it also had the Andersons' dog's hair in that hat, because the dog was known to ride in the back seat of Jesse's Volvo. On August 19th, 1992. Wow, the dates are popping up today, aren't they?
Yep.
Jesse was found guilty by an all-white male jury for killing Barbara. And he was sentenced to life without prison, or without prison.
Without
life
parole.
in prison without parole. Until he wouldn't be eligible for parole until 2052. However, he did. On November the 8th, on here. I gotta scroll up. That's where that date is. I know it's November 28th, but I can't. November 28th, 1994. Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver and one other person are sent for cleaning detail at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. They are to clean the gymnasium. This is at 7:50 a.m. that morning. By 8:10 morning, within that 20-minute period, Jesse and one other person, I will get to who that other person is here in just a minute. They hit, I don't know if it sounds like they poked or hit or something Christopher in the back. And when Christopher turned around, he sees these two people giggling, and he doesn't know which one it was. He wasn't sure if it was Jesse Anderson or if it was Jeffrey Dahmer that hit him. Now, do you see why I was holding off the name?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dahmer goes and starts to clean the gymnasium bathroom. Because for the whole first year that Dahmer was in Columbia Correctional, he felt it safest to be in solitary confinement for his own safety. The son of a bitch does not need his own safety. And so in the process, Jeffrey's in the bathroom doing his thing. Anderson's somewhere else doing his thing. Scarver grabs a metal thing that's about 8 inches long from the gymnasium. I don't know what it was. It was some sort of, it was a barbell or dumbbell.
Kettlebell or dumbbell?
You know what it's the thing that the things at the
That would be a
end,
dumbbell.
Yeah.
Dumbbell.
Thank you. Dumbbell. Anyway, so he grabs a dumbbell and he goes in the bathroom with Dahmer and he's got an article of Dahmer's. He shoves it in Dahmer's face. He's like, "Did you do this to them?" And Dahmer's like, "Yeah, well," Carver was already pissed off because of the fact that Dahmer during like lunches and he would take his food and he'd make it look like dismembered body parts and then he'd take ketchup and put blood on it and he'd like just to disgust the guards and other inmates. Well, Scarver was pissed off about this because Scarver obviously was a African American gentleman, or still is. I guess you don't really change your race. And well, I guess the reason I said he still is because he's still alive. I guess that's why I said it.
Yeah.
And he takes this dumbbell and he starts smashing Dahmer's face in. To the point that when the guards show up, which doesn't make sense, where were the guards? Because Dahmer always had guard detail because they were always concerned something bad was going to happen to him. So there is allegations that this may have been partly an inside job. After Scarver beats the crap out of Dahmer, and he's just barely hanging on, like he could hear him gargling for air, which probably was more like the death rattle, which is not a fun sound to hear. I've heard it a couple times. And so then Scarver goes and finds Anderson. Well, Anderson, upper class white man from the burbs, who accused two black men of killing his wife, even though he's the one had done it. Earlier in the art room of the Columbia Correctional Institution, there was a inmate that was very, very proud of a artwork that he had done of Martin Luther King Jr. So it was on the wall in the art room, and Jesse earlier that week had taken a red dot and put it right on Martin Luther King's forehead, like right here, and made it look like a blood shot because Martin Luther King was assassinated. And Jesse found this hilarious. Well, Scarver did not. So he goes and he basically bludgeons Jesse too. Now, he gets into his cell, he's back early, and the guards are like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Oh, God told me to do it. You'll see what happened on the 6 o'clock news tonight. Jeffrey Dahmer and Jesse Anderson are dead." Well, they go running, they find them, they run. Well, they both actually were still alive when they got to the hospital. Dahmer died about an hour later, and Jesse died 2 days later. Ironically, that's exactly how many days later that his wife Barbara had died. Now, just a quick mention, this was not the first attempt on Dahmer's life. Earlier that year, after Dahmer had gotten back into public domain, or the public, I know there's a name for it. General population. That's what I was looking for. When he got put back in general population, there was a guy that I can't even try and pronounce his first name, so I just wrote down his last name was Dorothy. Not Dorothy, Dorothy. And after the church service, he'd made a makeshift shank out of a razor, and they'd gotten done with the church service. Dahmer stood up, and Dorothy come behind him and literally tried slitting his throat. but the razor wasn't sharp enough, and he ended up putting it in solitary. And to this day, this guy does not regret what he did. He just he went so far that he managed to not just get transferred to Columbia Correctional Institution, but he ended up getting in the cell right next to Jeffrey Dahmer. Now back to the morning of the attack. So somewhere in between Carver's incarceration for Steve Loman and the morning of the Dahmer Anderson murders, he had been diagnosed as schizophrenic by the prison psychologist. And he was transferred at some point to Colorado, where they had given him kind of like, they treated him like a schizophrenic that should be treated, not like, oh, you're going to be out of control, I'm going to put you in solitary. He was doing wonderful in Colorado, but for some reason he got sent back here to Wisconsin. And in the process, he started hearing the voices and having the hallucinations again, and he was convinced that God was telling him that he needed to avenge Dahmer and Anderson. Well, in the process of all of this, he ends up being sentenced to 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, and he will spend now the rest of his life in the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, and for a good while, and I don't know if he still is, but I know for a good while he was in solitary confinement because he was a threat to the rest of the general population. However, before the Steve Loman murder, before the Dahmer murder, before the Anderson murder, Christopher Scarver had a clean record. He had never gotten in any trouble. So it was all because what these voices were telling him. Just a fun little fact. I'm pretty much done with the story, but I got like a fun little fact on Dahmer.
Okay.
So when he died at the hospital and the coroners took him to the morgue because they still had to do an autopsy on him, even though it was blunt force trauma to the head. Like, his head was so caved in that they didn't even recognize who he was. But the fun fact is, when he went to the morgue, they still had the shackles on his feet. Yep. And like the coroners and the medical examiners, like, can we take him off? And the cops were like, no. Like, what if he comes back to life? But I do pretty much done with the story, but I do want to, like, with the whole thing with Barbara being basically mentally, physically abused, I do want to bring up, if anybody is in a situation like that, there is the domestic abuse hotline where you can call 1-800-799-7233 or text capital BEGIN to 88788. And if you are having any mental health issues, there is a mental health hotline, which is 866-903-3787. And Quentin, if I send you those numbers, can you pop them up on the screen when you
Yes.
do editing?
And if it's an true, like, fully emergency, call 911.
Yep. All right. And that is the story of Christopher J. Scarver, who is infamous for the murder of Jeffrey Dahmer.
And
All right. Let me hear what you got.
Okay, so this, I'm not going off of like this is a story somebody wrote off of the scary stories from Reddit. It is known as I work as a night clerk at a supermarket. There are strange rules to follow. This is by Brief Trainer 6751. Have you ever worked a job where something just felt off? Not just the unusual workplace weirdness, annoying customers, or bad management, or soul-crushing hours. But something deeper, like an unspoken presence, something lurking just beneath the surface. You can't explain it, but you feel it.
Yeah.
That's
you are on a haunted business thing lately, aren't you?
Actually, I was going to go with one that the person took down. So the story is, that's how I felt when I started my new job as a night clerk at a 24-hour supermarket. At first, I thought the worst part would be the loneliness, the long empty. Yes, the long empty aisle stretched into silence. Maybe the boredom, the way the hours would crawl by like something trapped and suffocating under the fluorescent lights, or a worse, dealing with a constant, occasional drunken customer looking for beer past midnight. Apparently, I was wrong. There were rules. Not the regular store policies like stocking the shelves or keeping the floor clean. These rules were strange, unsettling. They didn't make sense, but one thing was clear. Breaking them was not an option. How
did you just do that without your mouth moving?
What?
You said breaking them was not an option and your mouth did not move. It was weird.
I got hired faster than I expected. No background check, no real questions, just a brief meeting with the manager and an old guy named Gary.
Okay, now the reason Quentin's laughing on that is his grandpa, my dad's name is Gary. We're having a lot of weird things correlate today.
Yes, who look like they've seen far too many night shifts. He sat behind.
You want to know something really weird? Okay, sorry to cut you off, but your grandpa used to work night shift when I was a kid.
He sat behind the counter, his fingering tapping against the cheap laminated surfaces in a slow, steady rhythm. The night shifts is simple, he said, his voice low and tired. Not many people come in. You stock the shelves, watch the security monitors. That's it. Seems easy enough until he reaches under the counter and pulls out a folded piece of paper and slid it towards me. Follow these rows, he said, his tone sharper now. Don't question them. Just do exactly what they say. I picked up the paper, expecting to be a list of store policies, emergency policies, closing duties, stuff like that. But as soon as my eyes landed on the first rule, something in my stomach twisted. Rules for the night clerk. If you see a man in a long coat standing in aisle 3, do not approach him. Do not acknowledge him. He will leave at exactly 2:16 a.m.
Well, at least it's not 3 a.m.
If the phone rings more than once between 1 a.m. and 1:15 a.m., do not answer. Let it ring. If a woman with wet hair enters the store and asks to use the restroom, tell her it's out of order. No matter what she says, don't let her go inside.
Well, these are different store policies.
Check the bread aisle at 3 a.m. If a loaf of bread is missing, immediately lock the front door and hide in the break room until 3:17 a.m. Do not look at the cameras during this time.
3 a.m. is the witching hour. Don't do anything at 3 a.m. I wouldn't even be checking to see if that loaf of bread's missing until 4 a.m.
If you hear the sound of children laughing after 4 a.m., do not leave the register. Do not speak. Do not move until the laughter stops.
Okay, one, kids' laughter is just creepy the way it is. And now, if you have no kids there and then you've got kids laughing, that's really creepy.
I let out a short, nervous laugh before I could stop myself. This is a joke, I asked, glancing at Gary. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink. His face remained unreadable, his eyes drained and sunken. Not a joke, kid, he said. His voice was flat. Just follow the rules, and you'll be fine. And with that, he turned and walked back towards the office, leaving me standing there, keys in hand, paper in my grip, my pulse thrumming like a warning bell. The first hour passed without incident. A couple late-night customers drifted in, grabbing snacks, paid, and left without much conversation. The store was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you hyper-aware of every flicker of the lights, even the distant hum of the refrigerators in the back. I restocked the cereal aisle, wiped down the counters, kept an eye on the security monitors, expecting to feel ridiculous for worrying about the silly list of rules. Then, at exactly 1:07 a.m., the phone rang. A sharp mechanical chime.
Oh, I gotta chill.
Chime cut through the silence. I froze. The rule flashed in my head. If the phone rings more than once between 1 a.m. and 1:15, do not answer it. Let it ring. But it was just the first ring. Maybe it was nothing. A wrong number. A prank. I reached for the receiver. My finger brushed against the plastic. The line went dead. The ring suddenly stopped. I exhaled, shaking my head. Maybe this was all weird invitation prank for new employees. Maybe Gary got a kick out of freaking people out. Then the phone rang again. 2 rings now. I stared at it, my hand over the receiver. The cold feeling crept down my spine. What's the worst thing that could happen if I answer? Then, on the security monitor, something shifted. My breath caught in my throat. A man was standing outside the store, just barely out of view of the camera. He wasn't moving. He wasn't pacing or looking at his phone like a normal person. He was just standing there. The phone rang a third time. I backed away from the counter.
Let me guess, he had a long coat on.
I backed away from the counter. My instinct screamed at me not to pick it up. I didn't. I let it ring. The 4th rang. Then silence. I exhaled. Tension still coiled tightly in my chest. Slowly, I turned my eyes back to the monitor. The man outside was gone. For the next hour, nothing happened. The store remained quiet. I was undisturbed. The only sound were the low hums of the refrigerators, the occasional creak of the old ceiling vents. I glanced at my phone, half expecting it to ring again, but it didn't. I told myself it was just a coincidence, some late-night weirdo lurking outside, a misdialed number, nothing more, but I wasn't in the mood to take chances. The uneasy feeling from earlier refused to fade. Instead, it grew, settling deep in my gut like a warning. I didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. I had to take these rules seriously. So when the clock hit 2:15 a.m., I turned towards aisle 3, and he was there. A tall man in a long coat, standing perfectly still, facing the shelf. A shiver crawled down my spine.
That was time perfect.
My grip tightened around the edge of the counter. Do not approach him. Do not acknowledge him. He'll leave exactly at 2:16 a.m. My gaze darted to the security monitor. 2:15:34. The numbers glowing ominous. Steady and unblinking. I held my breath. Seconds dragged on by, each one stretching longer than the last. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs. The man didn't move, didn't shift, didn't even seem to be breathing. He stood there, staring at the shelf as if he's waiting for something or someone. The lights gave a brief, uneasy flicker. In that split second, my eyes caught the security monitor. 2:16 a.m. The aisle was empty. Just gone, like he'd never been there at all. No footsteps, no flicker of moment. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. I shook in my shaky breath, my hands clammy against the counter. Had I imagined it? Was there some elaborate prank? Or maybe have I just stepped into something I wasn't meant to see? A chill settled over me, creeping the surface weight in my chest. I felt like I had a mistake, stepped into another world. One where the normal rules of reality did not apply. If I didn't want to check the bread aisle.
That's
Every
we're gonna check the bread.
every instinct screamed at me, stay put, to pretend nothing of it was real. But I had already ignored the phone rule, and I wasn't about to make the mistake of a doubt in another. The rules existed for a reason. Shallow in the lump in my throat, I forced my legs to move. Step by step, I made my way towards the bread aisle. My breath shallowed and uneven. Then I noticed one loaf was missing. The air left my lungs. I didn't hesitate. I spun on my heels and ran. My feet barely touched the ground as I sprinted to the front, heart pounding in my ears. I slammed the lock on the front doors, then bolted for the break room. My hands shook as I flickered the lights off and collapsed into the corner, curling into myself. The store was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes your skin prickly, that makes you feel like something is waiting just beyond the edge of your vision. Then, at exactly 3:05, the security monitor in the break room flickered on. I did not touch it. The screen buzzed with static for a moment, and then cleared, showing the bread aisle. Someone was standing there. No, something. It was too tall, its limbs stretched too long, its head tilted at a sickeningly unnatural angle. It wasn't moving, but I knew it was looking at me. Then slowly it turned toward the camera. My stomach lurched, my fingers dug into my arms, and then the screen went black. I squeezed my eyes shut, my pulse roaring in my ears. The rule said stay hidden until 3:17 a.m. I counted the seconds one by one. Don't look, don't move, don't breathe too loud. The air in the room felt thick, pressed against my skin like an unseen hand. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. So I waited and waited until finally I opened my eyes. The security monitor was normal again. I hesitated, then forced myself to stand, my legs feeling like lead as I made my way back to the front. I unlocked the door. Then I walked to the bread aisle. The missing loaf of bread was back. I was shaking. Not just the kind of shaking you get from a cold or nervous. My whole body felt weak. My fingers numbed as they clutched the counter. My breathing came in short and uneven gasps. I didn't care about my paycheck anymore. I didn't care about finishing my shift. I just wanted to leave. Then at exactly 4:02, I heard it. A sound that made my blood churn to ice. A soft, distant laugh echoed, barely there, yet impossible to ignore. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The way exhaustion plays your trick on the mind. But then it came again, high-pitched, playful, like children playing hide and seek. It echoed through the aisles, weaving through shelves, moving closer. My grip of the counter tightened, my knuckles turn and white. Do not leave the register. Do not speak. Do not move until the laughter stops. The rule repeated in my head like a desperate prey. The laugh grew louder, closer. Something flickered in the corner of my vision. A shadow darting between the aisles. Fast. Too fast. I struck in a breath. I did not turn my head. I did not look. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to stay still. The laughter was right behind me now. Soft, almost playful, but dripping with something that did not belong. Light, airily roaring. Then something cold brushed against my neck. A shiver shot down my spine, every nerve in my body screaming, and then silent. Nothing. No laughter, no movement, just a low hum of the light buzzing overhead. Slowly, so slowly, I opened my eyes. The store was empty, like nothing had ever happened, like nothing had been there at all. But I knew better. I felt it. Something had been right behind me. I didn't wait. I grabbed my things, shaking my hand, my mind screaming me to go, go, go. I wasn't finishing my shift. I wasn't clocking out. I was done. And I made it to the front door, heart pounding, already reaching for the lock, and then I heard a voice, low, calm, too calm. You did well, it said. I froze. The hairs on my back, on my neck stood on end. I slowly turned. Gary stood there.
Oh, jeez.
Watching me. His face looked the same, but his eyes were darkened. Not just sunken, wrong. Something inside them shifted like something else looking at me beneath his skin. I took a step. What the hell is this place? My voice barely came out of a whisper. Gary smiled. You followed the rules, he said. That means you can leave. That was all he said. No explanation, no warning. Just those simple, chilling words. I did not ask any questions. I ran. I quit the next day. I didn't go back to pick up my paycheck. I didn't answer when Gary called. I tried to forget. I tried to convince myself maybe, just maybe, it had all been a dream, a trick of my sleep-deprived mind. But later that night, as I laid in my bed, my phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and I stared in my throat. But I never answered it. I just let it ring.
You creeped the crap out of me. That is not a creepypasta, is it?
No, it's not. Oh, by the way, did you... What did you think of it?
That was... I got chills. I had to turn a little heater back on because I was so cold. Even though I was complaining it was warm in here earlier.
That would be from the Scary Stories Reddit page called I Work at a Night Clerk at Supermarket. There are strange rules to follow.
Wow.
So
I don't know which is creepier, working a night shift at a supermarket or working night shift in a nursing home or a hospital. I don't think there's much difference. There can't be.
I think you weren't expecting that story, were you?
No, you had me. I had chills multiple times.
So you know how we normally say
I don't think I'll be going to a convenience store at 2:00 in the morning ever again.
I told you that was going to happen too, did I not? Did I not tell you that?
Yeah, but there's only one that's open here in town all night. Oh.
So normally my stories are the ones that be the relaxing story.
Yeah, not this time. Neither one of us were relaxing today. They were pretty
Actually, yours was probably more relaxing than mine.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, that is kind of weird considering there was 3 murders in mine.
Mine had nothing to do with murders.
No, but yours was creepier. Yeah.
have that's not the button I wanted. Ev- So I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. I appreciate.
Yeah, me too. Subscribe.
Oh, and like.
Subscribe. And like, leave a comment, rate, review. Now it's on you.
Oh yeah, and make sure that you enjoy this stuff.
How are you? That's not even funny.
I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys are wondering what just happened.
Yeah, Quentin just called me on the phone while he's looking at me talking to me. I think he was just trying to freak me out.
And it worked.
He's got caller ID these days. It's not just
Oh, that's because your thing also blocks unknown calls. I tried it earlier.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So we're gonna Patreon. This is always gonna be a week in advance, so you guys know that.
Yep.
We'll have the YouTube video things straightened out. I am super sorry about that. I did not realize that.
And if it wouldn't have been for me looking on that, he wouldn't have noticed.
Yep.
So between the two of us, we got you guys.
Yep. You guys.
And seriously, rate and review it. Really helps our channel out.
Yep. You guys can
5
follow.
stars would be awesome.
Yeah, and you guys can also follow on our Discords where there's not much on the
Discord, Facebook. Yeah, there's not much on. Well, there's probably more on the Facebook page than there is. There's like nothing on the Instagram page. But you can follow the Instagram page. I'm sure at some point I'll get more onto doing that. Can't think of anything else.
Nothing I can think.
Yeah,
just
Discord, YouTube. Yeah, just rate, review, hit subscribe, like, leave a comment.
Give me another story.
Family and friends.
Yeah, and give me another story.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, or if you've got true crime from your own hometown or something that happened to you personally, send it in to let's-tell-their-story@gmail.com. We would love to start at some point doing stories that you guys send in. I'm a better reader than Quentin is, but that's just because Quentin's Quentin.
Hey, I creeped you out.
You did. You sent chills on my back a couple times. Yeah. But until next week, you guys stay safe, but
stay curious.
all right.